In the days when Jesus walked the earth, he often found himself surrounded by crowds eager to hear his teachings and witness his miracles. One sunny afternoon, as the sun cast its warm glow over the rolling hills, a vast multitude gathered to listen to him. The crowd was immense, 5,000 men, not counting women and children. They had followed Jesus into a remote place, far from the conveniences of town. As the day wore on, the people began to grow hungry. The disciples, concerned for the well-being of the crowd, approached Jesus with a troubling question. "Master, it is getting late, and the people are hungry. We are in a desolate place. Send them away to find food for themselves." Jesus looked at them with compassion and replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." The disciples were perplexed. How could they provide food for so many with so little? They only had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, barely enough for a small meal, let alone for thousands. Jesus instructed them to bring the food to him. With a calm and reassuring demeanor, he took the loaves and fish, looked up to heaven, and gave thanks. He then began breaking the bread and dividing the fish, handing them to his disciples to distribute among the crowd. As the disciples moved through the crowd, something miraculous occurred. The bread and fish seemed to multiply in their hands. Every person in the crowd received more than enough to eat. No one was left hungry. The baskets of leftovers collected at the end were filled to the brim, far more than they had started with. The crowd was astonished and deeply moved by this act of divine generosity. They marveled at the miracle they had witnessed, understanding it as a sign of Jesus' divine power and boundless compassion. This event not only satisfied their physical hunger, but also deeply nourished their souls, reminding them of the endless grace and provision that Jesus offers. Through this miracle, Jesus demonstrated his care for their needs and his ability to transform even the smallest of resources into something abundantly satisfying. As the sun began to set, the people left with full stomachs and hearts filled with awe and gratitude, their faith in Jesus strengthened by the profound display of his love and divine power. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the crowd dispersed, their hearts full and their spirits lifted. The memory of the miracle was etched in their minds, and they spoke of it with awe and wonder as they made their way back to their homes. Meanwhile, Jesus took a moment to reflect on the day's events. His disciples, still marveling at the miracle they had witnessed, gathered around him. They had seen Jesus perform miracles before, but this was different. This was a profound demonstration of divine abundance and care. Jesus said to his disciples, "Go, get into the boat and sail to the other side of the lake. I will dismiss the crowd." The disciples, though hesitant, obeyed. They boarded the boat and set out across the lake, eager to process the day's events and perhaps find some rest. As they sailed, the sky grew darker and the wind picked up, making their journey more challenging. Jesus remained behind, sending the crowd away and then climbing a nearby mountain to pray. He spent hours in quiet communion with God, seeking guidance and strength. The night wore on, and a storm began to brew, causing waves to crash against the disciples' boat. They struggled to keep the vessel steady amidst the turbulent waters. In the midst of the storm, the disciples saw a figure walking toward them on the water. Terrified and thinking it was a ghost, they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately spoke to them, his voice calm and reassuring. "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Peter, one of the disciples, called out, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." Jesus said simply, "Come." With a mix of faith and trepidation, Peter stepped out of the boat and began to walk toward Jesus. For a moment, he too walked on the water, his eyes fixed on Jesus. But when he noticed the wind and the waves, fear overcame him, and he began to sink. Peter cried out, "Lord, save me!" Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand, catching Peter and pulling him up. "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Jesus asked gently. They both climbed into the boat, and the storm calmed instantly. The disciples were amazed and worshiped Jesus, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." The boat reached the shore safely, and the disciples, still in awe, realized the depth of Jesus' power and love. The people on the other side of the lake soon heard of Jesus' arrival and flocked to him, bringing their sick and seeking his healing touch. Through these events, Jesus taught his disciples about faith, trust, and his ability to overcome even the greatest challenges. He showed them that with faith in him, they could weather any storm, both literal and metaphorical. And as they continued their journey with him, their understanding of his divine nature deepened, preparing them for the greater mission that lay ahead.